Welcome to Spill the Sustainability,
the podcast where we spill the tea on the hottest
and most controversial topics in the industry over a cup of tea.
It's another week, another episode with Pippa, the amazing founder of Pippa Small Jewellery. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
I mean, the interior definitely is reflected in like the colourful and beautifulness of all your jewellery.
I'm very glad that.
And you, actually. I feel like you fit perfectly within your own shop.
Stuck to the wall. Yeah, no, it is about colour and beauty. I mean, beauty fundamentally is such an important thing in our lives. I think we underestimate it. It's important. So yes, we try and create a beautiful space.
It's stunning.
I'm going to pour us all some tea.
I'm going to then dive straight in. So can you tell us a bit about your journey into jewellery design? Because I don't come from a fashion background at all. I come from a science background. So I just find it really fascinating chatting to people about their creative journeys.
Yeah. Well, I suppose one of the things I was thinking is quite important to talk about, given what we're talking about, is to kind of slightly unpick the wording before I go on about my
Oh,
which
okay.
will kind of the day I was born, and then it goes on and on and on for many years. No, but sort of to talk a little bit about what sustainability in jewellery means, because I think that's quite important. I think there's so many terms that, as we were saying, sometimes it can be intimidating and you feel silly going like, well, what does sustainable jewellery mean, or what does ethical jewellery mean? And I think it's just really important to kind of unpick those and understand what are we talking about. So I was thinking, unfortunately, to start with a bit of a spoiler, jewellery. Gold is considered one of the most destructive industries in terms of its environmental impact. So
The mining
not a great
industry.
way to start. Mining
yes.
industry. So looking at all these lovely things, but to understand what the alternatives are. So, gold mining is, as I said, very destructive in terms of, ecological systems, water wastage, soil erosion, biodiversity, you name it.
You name it, it's got it.
Lovely. This is a good start. It's tricky. It is an industry, jewellery has been an industry that historically has been shrouded in a kind of mystique and mystery. It's like beautiful things presented, but actually wind back. How were they made? Who made them? How were they mined? How were they extracted? And those are not so beautiful and haven't been so beautiful historically, but we're now at a time where there are alternatives. So it's really focusing on where things can be done differently and how we can do things differently. I mean, equally, gold mining is also something where, when it's done properly, where there are certified mines that are fair trade, fair mined, you can see rewilding projects. We support one in Colombia, which is a mercury poisoned area where rewilding, so that they can eventually grow food again and bring life back. And you also have, gold as an insurance policy throughout time, particularly for women. Wearing gold has meant, in an emergency, melt it, cash, instant. It's something that's been like a security for, I'd say particularly women, but for people since gold started to be used, which is interesting.
I was reading recently that for women, because obviously we couldn't inherit property or anything like that, you'd inherit jewellery, and that would be how you accumulated wealth, like back in the day.
Exactly. If you need to leave, melt it, go. So it's always been something that I think particularly for women is interesting.
Is that why you kind of stick to a lot of your pieces are gold? Is that sort of like, because I mean, obviously looking around, you do have obviously some silver pieces, but a lot of the most of the metal you use is gold. Is that sort of part of it, sort of popping back into the history of gold, or is it more you just like it's a colour gold?
No, but interestingly, the more, because of current instability globally, gold prices have gone through the roof. And it's like reflecting, why is that? Like, why is gold, this material, it's mined like copper, like tin, like, it's a metal from the earth. It's rare, but no rarer than some materials. It doesn't rust, it doesn't corrode. But what really makes it different, and why we humans have attached this strange value to it, is its beauty. I mean, that's all I can deduce. It's like, it's a really beautiful material, especially when it's very pure. But I think there is a seduction in that, but
definitely
it's a funny one.
I also feel like we're all a little bit of a magpie as people. We see shiny things and we're like, so nice and pretty.
It's okay.
And obviously it's historically been around for thousands of years. Obviously the Egyptians used it, the Romans used it. It's obviously massive in like South Asian culture, East Asian culture,
South American.
Like they all used gold over silver. So it's really interesting that it's sort of, it is that, I suppose, a timeless metal in a way.
So have a relationship with it, and have done, as you say, for thousands of years. It's a funny one because it's irrational. I
feel like half the things are irrational, though. You know, we have these choices in life and we just make really irrational choices as to why we want them. Anyway,
I think it's really easy to just forget when something's so beautiful, you can sort of forget that maybe there's ethical violations, things like that behind it. And I think that's what's really special about your work, is it's beautiful and you can also trust it, which I think is a really rare feeling today.
I think that's what's also important in looking at alternatives, where you do have these minds that are doing good. So, around well-run minds, you have kind of educational, health projects, you have rewilding projects, you have, I don't know, sometimes obviously job creation is important, although I think there's a lot of industries we have to find alternatives at some point, but there's a lot of people working in small-scale mining. But I think also it's also about the craft, which is the other side of it. So if you can get gold, and here we're looking at gold, just to kind of jump in.
That is stunning.
Can I hold it up and show?
Because that is, it literally looks woven.
Yeah, it's
I mean, beautiful. And the structure of it, it looks like it's been almost like knitted. Sort of crocheted together.
It reminds me of chainmail kind of thing.
Yeah, you love a bit of chainmail.
I do love a bit of chainmail.
Well, this is just an interesting piece because this is made in Colombia, and the gold, what's important is the gold itself is mined by a women's association. They pan. So, I mean, mining is a difficult word, but that's what they use, the word. And it means this is kind of, carbon neutral. This is no pollution at all, no environmental impact. It's just literally women in the local community, this is Afro-Colombian Choco region, who can come down to the river. And it's just kind of amazing to see because their daughters are there playing by the side of the river, kind of keeping an eye, like learning how to do this.
Yeah.
It's an informal method of coming down with the ancient wooden tray. You scoop up a bit of gravel from the edge of the river and you swirl it, and it separates flecks of gold from the rest of the material found in the bottom of a river. And that is amazing because these women...
Small scale.
And this is the most crucial thing. In a very kind of indigenous way of doing things, they are really conscious of taking a little bit and knowing that a large-scale mine will scoop it all up and there'll be nothing left. But this is something they feel they want their grandchildren to be able to take a little bit of gold that will bring value to their lives in a way that when you need some cash, when you want to pay for school, when you need a hospital bill, we can go get gold, sell it. And what's important, obviously, is they get kind of international gold price for it. It's formalized, but it's something that they can do when they need and want.
Do you go to the mines? Do you go to the mines to sort of ensure that?
Well,
because obviously, a lot of places say they do. Oh, we're so ethical. We care about the people who work for us, and half the time they just don't give it stuff.
Yeah.
So do you? Like, I know before we started recording, you've said you went out to Afghanistan to meet the makers. So do you go to the gold mines?
I spend a lot of time, and this is for me the most important thing, is that I suppose this is all about human relationships, and whether it's with customers or whether it's makers or miners, it's about relationships with people. And so, yes, absolutely, I go, I've been to Choco to meet the miners, the women who produce this gold, the makers. We work in Tumaco, which is in Nariño, another part of Colombia. And these relationships, to me, I do feel like the most privileged person in the world, because I feel like I've got family in Afghanistan. I've been going to Afghanistan like 20 years now. Myanmar, 10 years. Colombia, it's 3 years. It's a newer one. But everywhere I work, I feel like there are people where we kind of have sat down, and this is really about showing up no matter what's going on. So in Afghanistan during the war, Myanmar's having a tricky time. It's conflict. And you go. I mean, I have the privilege of being able to go and leave. They don't have the privilege of leaving when times are tough. But it's that sitting down, usually on the floor, and having conversation.
Immersing in their culture.
But it's more about family, about love. I mean, it's kind of, this is something that, human, particularly in areas where things are tough, is you kind of have this like, wow, people can be incredible. This sort of, during the darkest times in Afghanistan, people were still in the workshop make jokes, find things to laugh about, fall in love, tease each other about falling in love, get married, have children, babies were born, friends, family would die, things would happen, workshop was in a bomb incident, things, destruction,
awful
creation,
things, but resilience,
finding laughter in the darkest times. I always just makes me cry. It's like so incredible that people
how do you personally manage that? Because those are so many pretty intense and deep relationships. It must be like tricky to feel like that you can leave.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's a kind of the privilege of my position over what they're doing. But I think the fact that we work together in this partnership is really important, because the value that I can bring, which is coming, doing a huge amount of research, not just politically and things, but also historically on design tradition, looking at what people are wearing now, looking at museum collections, but just really delving into historical, to really get a context of like, okay, we're going to design things, but they have to be rooted in this culture, otherwise why are we here? It's like
you want to make sure you appreciate where
this
they're being
is about
made
cultural
from.
appropriation. It's about people who are in a place who don't have massive access to the outside market, who have skills, who have resources, materials, who have a history, a really rich history in jewellery or cultural history. But we look at the jewellery, I come out with kind of ideas of like what we're going to do, whether it's inspired by tiles or mosque designs or patterns woven in the women's dresses or whatever it happens to be. It's like that's our beginning thread. And that from that we sit together, we create, we design things, and I make them, I buy them, I import them, I sell them, I tell the story. So this is my role, is to, with kind of complete transparency, I go in with the hopes that this will turn into a sustainable relationship. Where, like Afghanistan, there were, young men who were workshop assistants who now are married with children, who are still working with us. So seeing
that's so lovely, though.
Providing a safe, because it also
working environment for people,
creative one, and also this ability to kind of stay in their home. It's like they don't want to have to leave because there's network, and leave this incredible fabric of their community. They want to stay, to be able to stay in their home, which is like they should have the right to, but they need jobs. So this is kind of going in a circular way. What is also important about jewellery is you have cultural craft heritage and traditions and skills and master craftsmen and knowledge and design techniques that are rooted in places that are sometimes endangered by conflict, by poverty, by migration, many things. But it's important if we can keep those dynamic, alive, growing, change. They can't stay static, but we draw on inspiration, we allow the voice to be heard of the place and the people, but make it universal enough that even if you don't know, I've never been to Colombia, not particularly interested in Colombia, but I like those earrings. Fine, that's enough. But you're holding this person's work and their creation and their creativity and the pride that comes from that's really important.
You describe all of your pieces as being like talismans, and I found that really interesting when I was reading like through your information pages. I really love that idea, and I sort of wondered if you could touch on that a little bit and explain why to you jewellery is a talisman.
It's interesting because I think that comes from quite a personal thing, which is when you were saying how did you start jewellery, I never answered. But it's sort of that thing of like, I came from a really large family and quite chaotic. We sort of moved a bit, and I think families and childhood can be quite unsettling anyway. You're and I think what I had noticed as a child was stones, and I mean rock, pebble, gravel in the drive. Stones, rocks became something that I really clung on to, and pockets full of rocks, paper bags full of rocks. I mean,
I'm picturing you at the beach, literally collecting pebbles at the beach and putting them in your pocket.
I used to do that when I was a kid.
A lot of children do, and it's if you think about it in a kind of
tangible way. You can touch it, you can hold it. It warms.
Exactly.
It's. I feel like it's this weird sort of therapeutic thing in an object.
Yeah, I think it totally is, and children. We're smart enough as children to kind of recognise that it's part of the earth. Literally.
Yeah.
It doesn't change. It's solid. It's perfect. The perfect parent.
It's consistent. It's there.
But I think that was where my journey with jewellery started. Is like literally, holding on to rocks and as you say, the tactileness of touching, the warmth. and kind of then went on to study anthropology, ended up doing a master's in medical anthropology.
Yeah, I wanted to ask about that actually, because how has that influenced your creative process and just research?
I think it started with, this, I was lucky as a child to travel a lot with my mother, and it was that sort of, that privilege of being able to step out into other worlds and get a sense of how other people live their lives, what's important to them, how they relate to the world around them, how their belief systems impact, it's just everything, how they relate to their environment. Everything about that I found as a child fascinating. It was like, how else can people live in the world? And that influenced me to study anthropology. I ended up doing medical anthropology because I was interested in mental illness, how that was seen culturally.
Interesting.
And how that leads to jewelry. Skipping into being interested in human rights, and particularly human rights with indigenous communities. So I started working in Sarawak, Sabah, and Borneo, with different communities in the Philippines and Thailand and India. So it was kind of, I started in my 20s doing completely something else. But what was kind of curious was I'd always made jewelry. I had a little drill, and I had a tumbling machine.
I love that.
I was covered in, but not just jewels, memories. I think this is going back to talismans. It's like realizing that in objects we hold so much memory, so much.
Our last episode was actually on trinkets and treasures and things like that, and it's really similar, isn't it? It's just the memories that they all hold.
And who gave it to you, who wore it before, or particularly jewelry. It's like never.
You have a real deep connection with objects, like in particular. I think more so than I do, but you're very like,
especially for me in terms of jewellery, I really like mourning jewellery because I love like how there's the hair woven into it and things like that. But I do feel like you can really grow deep bonds, and I wrote my master's thesis actually on the way we connected clothing after after someone's passed away, and like how we're so sort of woven into the thread, and we can't
kind of literally the stretch of a jean. It's so true. It's so personal.
And I think with jewellery it's even more so because we keep it so close to us, like almost all the time. Like you sleep with a lot of your jewelry.
I mean, I have this bracelet that never comes off. I have a necklace that I never take off. So a lot of there's a few pieces I have that just they never leave my body. They're constantly on.
What else do we have that we literally hold on the body and have that relationship with? It's kind of extraordinary. I mean, jewelry is quite interesting. But it does hold all these kind of values and meanings.
Closer to me, sorry. Otherwise you're gonna not be in the video.
That's really interesting, but that goes back to totally forgotten.
Talismans.
And I think so sort of working with these communities, I in more human rights capacity, I had all these things, whether it was buttons or bits of key ring, whatever. For me they held meaning, and I wore them, and it was strange, but and I find like these communities, like quite traditional communities in remote areas, and particularly Southeast Asia, they'd kind of be like, "Ooh, why do you wear this, and who gave you that, and what does this one mean?" And I'd be like, "What's that mean? And who gave it? And why do you wear that? And what's the meaning?" And so I just thought, wow, jewelry, in some sense one could say it's quite superficial. It's about status or bling or whatever. But fundamentally, it was like this connection between humans who didn't have an awful lot in common in terms of our lives and things. But suddenly it was like jewelry connected us, and it was like a communication that opened up. We like got each other on a jewelry level. So
that's so nice though. I mean, one of the things when you reached out saying you'd wanted to be on the podcast, the first thing we looked at was the fact that you had a collection Palestine, and we were like, yes, tick, because obviously it was that initial full understanding of like human rights and caring for one another, and actually showing that, and this like when you read through each collection, the stories that you share of like meeting the people who create the jewelry, the craftsmanship, that was something that's really nice, because you just don't see, I mean I maybe I'm not looking in the right places, but you don't really see that
also
in a lot of jewellery and clothing brands as well.
I think also not enough brands and people are standing up and saying what needs to be said and saying they support Palestine, and I think it's really well, just amazing to see.
Yeah.
I mean, it shouldn't be that I'm saying that it's amazing, really.
No, it should just it
should be a given.
No, it should be a given. But also the fact it's not just, you've talked about so many, like you have connection with so many places that are in conflict, like Myanmar, Afghanistan, obviously seen like a lot. Colombia's obviously also had civil war, unrest, whatever you want to call it. And I just think it's actually really special that you still go to those places and have those connections with those people, because they also need a livelihood and they also want to share their stories. Absolutely. And I love that you do that.
It's like, Afghanistan, what do you think? War, bombs, and no, culture, beauty, making, people celebrating their culture. It's like we need to sort of shift the narratives around a lot of places, and equally in Palestine, incredible history, incredible culture, incredible people, and such creativity. I mean, working with the Katans in Bethlehem, who are a family of goldsmiths, and they've created these amazing pieces which are cast, it's gold and it's cast olive leaves. So knowing, the symbolism of an olive leaf, especially in Palestine, but all over the world, we see it as, peace and wisdom from the ancient Greeks, from the Bible. It's like, it's a loaded leaf. And to see what a beautiful piece they've made with that. And I think it's interesting also, like, when this situation started, we reached out and were like, what do you need? What can we do? Money, what, and they were like, give us work.
Keep us,
not for money, but
livelihood,
positivity, focusing on something with so much difficulty around. Let's make something. And as so many places, losing yourself in the act of making is very therapeutic. You spend your,
it's almost like escapism.
It's escapism, but creating something. So it's not kind of stepping out.
It's not vegetating escapism.
It's about video games. You're kind of, there may be chaos out there, but you're kind of in a zone where, I mean, they do say that's when you're happiest, when mind and body is focused on making something together. It's kind of, and then the result is so pleasing and so much pride around that. Like, with your own hands, you made this. So this is a really important one. And we're working with these glass makers, Muhammad Tuan, who he's just such a skilled glass blower. And this is something very traditional in Palestine, and since ancient times, glass beads and, this kind of beautiful pomegranate glass. And so we're just starting molding on ancient beads, which is, so much part of the culture, looking way back, the kind of beautiful old glass beads or stone beads, and he's doing them in kind of contemporary glass and this rainbow of colours. So we're really excited about those and supporting that project.
Oh, it's just beautiful. We were both like, we were both so happy, because you talk a lot about sort of human rights and global politics on the podcast, and how fashion is political, and like you wear your values. You wear your values. So actually being, in the UK, obviously, is such a privilege with everything going on in the world. So being able to support people who are facing conflict and being able to support them from afar is something that's it's a really nice thing to be able to do. And obviously it's a privilege to be able to do that, but also walking around wearing those values. Like, if you walked around wearing this ring, people will see that and understand. Obviously there's a lot of people wearing like watermelon charms and watermelon earrings, and it's the same, those are like, it's kind of the same thing, wearing that. And I think it's the same when you wear a piece of clothing from like an ethical brand, sustainable brand, with who, it's like organic cotton, all of that stuff. It's still, you're wearing the values. And I think people forget that fashion is political.
Well, it's a form of communication, really, isn't it? It's like what you were saying with jewellery, just like touching and sort of seeing in different countries and cultures, you can still connect over that. And I think it's an overlooked form of communication. Because it allows us to say so much in so few words.
And it's so subconscious too. You might not be clocking it, but you're kind of noticing and
connecting to different people's cultures and heritage. I think that's such a nice thing to do.
It's actually something I've been really trying to do, because I'm half Nigerian, and so I've been doing loads of research trying to understand and learn more about Nigerian jewellery, because I want to start wearing more of it. But it's difficult in a sense, because with so much of the Western influence that's been there, like historically and continues to be, it's hard to find like the truth in it all. If that makes sense.
I mean, it's also such a huge country, and there's so many different groups, so
and different people. So which jewellery from which place would you wear?
There's no Nigerian.
So I've been looking for coral jewellery, but obviously coral you can't
But also,
he'll bring it in bad.
Also, coral jewellery is, it's across the Pacific Islands and all of that stuff as well. So you could end up buying something that you think is representative of Nigeria and it's actually from
I think
somewhere else.
I think that's okay in a sense if it's like the right materials. I don't know, I guess it's like if it's the right coral and things, it's just that I guess some countries and some cultures have cross sections of materials that they use, Yeah. I've been looking for secondhand coral, just to say. I'm not importing anything.
We're not digging up coral reefs from earrings.
I also wanted to ask about, there's a cabinet over there which has got designs from I want to say, is it Afghanistani? Yeah. Designers, and I thought that was really amazing. And you're really happy, I can tell.
I'm happy. It's called The Next Generation, and it's basically about 3 years ago or something, we started a program working with women in Afghanistan, helping to train, learn skills, livelihood skills, and it's just been such a fantastic initiative and social enterprise now. And this is really about supporting their designs. So we go through the kind of technical, how to make, how to cut stones, how to polish, how to set. They've got all that, and this is about the design elements. So that's something that also, I find it quite interesting because in many parts of the world, tradition is so strong, and somewhere that was quite isolated, like Afghanistan for many years, this kind of idea of innovation, of kind of coming up with your own design, like this completely individual, this is my design, only me, I designed it. And so, it's so alien because it's a collective, again, many ethnicities, many different groups in Afghanistan, but I think there was this idea, you take what's part of our culture and you develop it slowly, but you don't do this kind of, I think I want, to design a rose earring or something. It just wasn't there. It was like you'd learn from your master, you'd reproduce what they did and you'd move it forward. But it wasn't this kind of ego-driven, if you like. It was more, this is us. This is what we create. And so it's been an interesting process to see how the young, who obviously want to express themselves, are taking to design. And this is a lot of the results of that. And it's joyful, it's beautiful. Sometimes they do it, in a very storytelling way. It's kind of, a little sun coming out from behind a moon, like the light will shine again. We will, or like one woman made a little tiny cage with a figure inside. She felt very trapped, and so they use it also to tell a story, but it's also just to make beautiful things. So I'm really proud of what they're creating, and I have to say we're also working with young men here. But I think their expression and their design sense is really beautiful, and so we're really happy to support that one.
I think it's amazing because I think it creates a balance as well in your business. In that, from before you'd even said that, I think it was very clear that you had like deep connections to everybody you work with and at every place you work in. But I think this is just adding just a whole new layer to it all, and I think it's really exciting and really special, and hopefully more places will do this kind of thing.
Absolutely,
because it's empowering, isn't it? I think it's really good.
It's empowering their communities and also like giving them an opportunity to be creative, because I imagine also being a place that's faced so much conflict, they haven't had the opportunity to be creative. It's very much sort of do what you need to do to live rather than
the space and time to
and the headspace just to think about creativity and understand what that actually is, because it's such a privilege to be able to have the opportunity to be a creative.
Absolutely.
And so actually giving them the opportunity to both work but also be creative it's just really lovely, because it actually, I think it's something that they probably aren't used to being able to do it. And as you said, they sort of learn just by copying the master jeweler, which is I think probably how a lot of places work anyway, but actually it's really nice that they have the opportunity to go into that creativity and understand what it feels like,
and also how it does impact the family dynamic, community dynamic, because a lot of young women we work with have said, my family was completely against my coming here. All of them was really nervous about it, and they're able to say now, but we've changed his mind. He's seen that I can make money. He's seen how happy I am and I'm safe and but that's really big. That's enormous that we can help women's position in the community or in their family, so their daughters are seeing them making something happy.
Role models.
Well, that's pretty good. So I'm happy.
Is that hard? Do you ever find that difficult in so I'm half Indian, and obviously there is quite a lot of issues around women and where they sit in society. Have you found it difficult when you go to different places to work with them, that women are not you know, sometimes allowed to, you know, take up work, or you know, it's frowned upon to do those things. Like, how do you as a designer working with those people tackle that?
It's complicated. I mean, I think I started doing this when I was quite young, so being a younger woman is different to being an older one.
Yeah.
I think also being a foreigner and being an outsider, I am probably looked at as a kind of, you know, businessman. I'm not a woman, and I'm not part of the culture, so I'm like something else. something else. So it's not, I don't have to follow their rules in that sense, but I have seen examples of women really struggling to be heard, to be seen, to be allowed into that sphere. It is, and it does make one upset and angry.
Understandably.
But you know, you also see change, because like for the young women in Afghanistan, where their roles and things have shifted because of the ability to kind of access it, is really exciting.
Yeah, that must also feel so fulfilling.
Yeah.
Because not only are you obviously providing a job opportunity, creativity, but you're also, in some ways, positively progressing their society when they're so like traditional. And I think sometimes tradition is beautiful, but tradition also has its problems, I think.
Definitely.
And obviously, even in the UK, we face, you know, our own set of issues here. So it must be really fulfilling to be able to see that, like, positive change.
We're talking tiny.
But honestly, we always say
this on the podcast, which is that like tiny changes make a big difference, and most people don't have the power to make a big change, but if we all make lots of tiny ones, it all adds up.
That's like we talk about, like, pretty much every podcast episode, we're like small changes.
Otherwise I think you become so helpless and you feel like you can't do anything, but these small tiny things do. You know, like lots of little ants, you know.
Absolutely. No, I totally agree with that. Whatever we can do in small ways is worth, and and makes me very happy too. So,
do you travel a lot still then?
I do, yeah.
I saw that you've got twins.
I do.
Yeah, and I think I saw on Instagram. Sorry, I feel like I'm
she's done the stalking before she turned up.
And you said that you've been taking them sort of with you for years. And I thought, how do you manage that? That must be difficult, because my sister's just had a kid, so I guess I'm more sort of interested in like how you sort of manage business and motherhood.
Business and babies.
Business life, babies. It's interesting because I was a single mother, so I kind of, part of maybe, I don't know, part of the reason, there are many reasons to want a child or not want a child or whatever, but I mean, part of why I wanted a child was I'd been traveling all my life, and I just had this sense, I don't know, I love this planet. I mean, I love this world. I think there's just nothing more beautiful than, you know, spending time in places and with people and learning and understanding. And I think I just genuinely wanted to have children to share it. It's like, let's go and see how incredible the world is. Like,
so nice,
and, you know, you then take that on and, you know, love this. So that was kind of one of the reasons. So in knowing that, you know, having a business that had to support me and the children, I also was very conscious that I couldn't change my life entirely. Children had to come along. Which we'll see in time whether that was a grave mistake, but I think for the moment they have a privilege of having seen many things.
It's like what you were saying at the very beginning, which is that you travelled a lot when you were younger, and it sort of influenced who you are now, and sort of understanding different cultures and everything like that. And both me and Izzy have had like the opportunity to do that when we were little, and I think it really creates great people.
I was gonna say, I'm so great. I travelled a lot when I was a child, and I'm so grateful to have had that opportunity, because I have friends who I've basically grown up with, you know, the other side of the world, which it's a privilege to be able to travel. So, you know, that's something to note. But they live a totally different life. Like, they literally fish for their food. They don't, you know, they're not surrounded by luxury, money. They live off the land. And, you know, they literally live in places with like a tin hut, like roof. But I've become so close to them, and having the opportunity to learn about their culture and actually immerse in that, I think has also helped coming somewhere like the UK, which obviously is a totally different way of living, having an appreciation for just how ridiculously lucky and privileged we are to have everything on our doorstep, where people...
And probably increasingly, you know, in this kind of diversified world where, you know, it's them and us, and they're different, they can't come in, they can't... You know, it's like, this world is dangerous, and to be able to know that we're all the same. We all fall in love, we all laugh, we all die, we all get sick. You know, we're all the same, and that's so important. I think, you know, for the children, it's really, as much as travel is also not a great environmental thing to do.
Yeah,
I think in a way it's like, but if we don't know that we're all the same, there is no difference. I mean, there's different cultures, different experiences, different levels of poverty and privilege, yes, but fundamentally people are the same, and I think that's a really important thing that they need to know. And
I was gonna say, it helps. I also think it helps children not think of people from different backgrounds as the other. It sort of like allows them to create community, because they don't point at other people going, you're different, you're from a different culture, you're a different ethnicity. It's more like, oh, we've seen all these different cultures, all these different people, and we can all get on together, because there's nothing fundamentally, obviously there's tradition differences, but fundamentally we're all just people trying to get on.
Absolutely. I think that's fundamentally, that's what that does. I mean, even to the extreme, I remember when my daughter was little, she long blonde hair and blue eyes. And
she
was we were in India, and I was
gonna say India is
it's the thing, but she put on a bindi, or something on a bindi on her, and I remember her looking in the mirror and going, now no one will know that I'm not Indian, and everything. Wow, she does not see,
she's just not, she doesn't need to see it.
She feels like no one's going.
Wow, that's really cute.
That's so cute.
That's
I haven't been to India, and I really I need to go. No, I know. Okay. I haven't been, and it's something that I've been wanting to do. Obviously,
maybe in the right time and right circumstances.
Yeah, obviously India, right? You know, there's now conflict happening there, which is devastating, but for many reasons. But I haven't been, and I really, really want to go, because I just feel like there's obviously half of my heritage I'm not connected to at all, and obviously like jewellery is a massive part of their culture. I have like a friends getting married this year, and she's having a Hindu wedding, and it's honestly just a cultural experience for me to learn. And I'm like so excited to just like see all her wedding jewellery, and obviously all the clothes and all
the ritual and the wedding.
I love it.
I'm extremely jealous. It's gonna be amazing.
The food. I just feel like it's a learning experience. So it's definitely somewhere I need to go. To actually just literally get in touch with my own heritage, because it's a bit of a sad thing that I haven't done it. But
I don't think that's sad. I think that when it comes to connecting with our like own heritage, there's so many different ways to do it. And as we said, travel is such a privilege. And I think that we connect in ways that we can. And when the moment arrives that we're meant to go back, it will happen.
Go back.
I don't think there's a sadness. There doesn't need to be a sadness.
Anticipation.
I'd be so excited for the food.
I have to say, can we talk about this? Are they all your original designs then?
Yeah, but this obviously is a lotus flower.
I was going to say, is it lotus flower? I literally was like, it looks like a lotus flower.
And this is from Myanmar, so obviously, you know, predominantly a Buddhist culture. I mean, the artisans who work with are very spiritual people. I mean, most of them meditate every day. Their belief is a big part of, you know, the mindfulness of making is really important to them. So, like Tin Win, who made this, he, for example, I remember him saying once, you know, I can never touch the gold or start working with the tools if I've like had a fight with my wife or something, you know, where he feels like all. I
just also love that you know exactly who made that. That's really that's really special. That like you can name.
I mean, I know their hand. It's literally
that's amazing.
You recognise
it. It's so beautiful. Like I wish. Obviously, I think we're gonna add a cutaway of this, because I wish you could see like the craftsmanship of the hinges, like the detail, the fact it open and closes, which is obviously like that's a symbol within their own culture as well.
And the lotus, which kind of grows up from the mud. I think there's this idea of coming from ignorance into enlightenment, so it comes out to the surface, and that is like that opening. But I mean, lotuses do close at night, and that's also something very beautiful.
But you were saying, so he doesn't like to touch the gold
until he's like, you know, he either has to meditate to clean, you know, and calm, be in the right state of mind, because he doesn't want it to kind of transfer. It's like,
and that's the talisman thing, isn't it? It's like it does hold something. It's similar to, in my mind anyway, like I wouldn't get a tattoo by someone whose energy I don't like, and I think it's similar.
You would transfers onto you, and you don't want
and if someone's made, you know, a piece of jewellery in a rage, then like you don't want to wear it.
You're gonna be walking around raging.
I think it's true. And as we said, it's on the body. It's, of course, that contact is so intimate.
Also, just like technical, like how technical these pieces are. Like this fish actually moves.
That's also Myanmar like inlay. That's a particular thing there.
I have some silver fish earrings that my brother-in-law's mother, she used to go to India a lot, and she brought them back from India probably like 30 years ago. They're amazing.
In Lake Inle, they usually have two fish together, and one wiggles that way and one wiggles that way.
Oh.
And they're kind of as a pair.
So do you sell these? Would you sell them as pairs then? Or do
We
you...
sometimes sell them as one or as pairs, or
it's just so, I just think it's pretty cool.
that's really sweet.
Yeah.
And I wondered if you thought about like the meanings behind the crystals that you used.
Yes, I mean I do, but I'm a little bit kind of like, if someone were to say, you know, rose quartz brings love or something, I would be like, so why?
that's on my level. I'm the same.
I'm like, oh well, adorn me an amethyst for protection.
But I am, maybe it's the anthropology or whatever, but I am really interested if, you know, to the ancient Mayans and or in this case like the Incas and things, what was emerald and what did it mean? And I want to kind of a cultural link to that knowledge that goes back I don't know, I just don't want to be told by someone who hasn't lived with that stone for sort of millennium like, you know, they have with emeralds, or I just want the knowledge to come from somewhere. And then I think some of it is really about instinct, and I don't think you need words and language. I think you just go, this stone, don't know what it is, or
just
what,
something
just
to me
feels right. And
so do you use the stones that are all related to that culture? Because I've noticed you've got like turquoise for Afghanistan. I assume that's they use that a lot in their tradition. Okay, because I think that's also really nice, because I think there's I suppose a cultural appropriation with things like crystals and stuff like that. Like this is probably slightly off topic, but so my other half ethnicity is Chinese, and there's obviously this huge like jade rollers and like gua sha and stuff, and all these places and using jade, and people sort of the Western culture taking that and just being like, haha, cool, this is just going to help my skin look great, but not actually knowing that's you know, deep rooted in traditional Chinese medicine, and that there's a reason that jade is like really, really coveted. And I feel like crystals and stones are like that across the world, with like people sort of taking them and not really understanding where it comes from within that culture. So it's really nice that the stones you use for each collection by different people is really specific to those people. I think it's quite important.
And for example, you know, in Palestine we're not using gems because there aren't stones from there, or obviously in Colombia we're using emeralds, but we're not. In Myanmar there are many gems, so we play with all of them. Afghanistan also has many gems. Obviously the lapis lazulas, they're kind of a more national stone, which is really just from Afghanistan.
Is that what this is?
Turquoise.
Turquoise. No, turquoise. It's just because this is not.
So wait, what's lapis? Because I know it from Minecraft.
Okay, it's the dark blue.
Oh, it's dark blue.
That's lapis lazuli, and I mean that's the stone that like Cleopatra loved, or you know they ground it and used some pigments in the Renaissance painting. So really, it just comes from Afghanistan. You find it in Chile a bit, but it's not as good.
I didn't know that.
That's really interesting.
That's so interesting.
Yes, it was traded all over the world from, you know, the Silk routes, and it's an Afghan from Badakhshan.
That's actually that's
I'm
fascinating.
Be researching that.
Yeah, I was going to say this would be a bit of your history. You found
it's a beautiful deep, and when it just can glow. It's a really special stone. So we try and work with local gems. It's also not about moving stones around the world. You know, that gets crazy. You know, if you're working somewhere, use what you've got there. Or don't use stones.
Or if they don't have it there.
Don't use it.
How big are your collections, and how often do you kind of do them?
We create new collections twice a year, and in most of the countries I work with, so it means kind of going in each place and creating and coming up with ideas, and then we show them in Paris and New York, and then we just hope for good sales, because it's all about, you know, part of what we want to do is with these small workshops we work with is to provide enough work for them to hire young people, train them, keep us going. And that's really the aim, is not just to keep the kind of design tradition going and the making tradition, but also train more, you know, get more people involved. So we take them to market, we try and
do you wholesale? Do you kind of do a bit of cheeky bit of wholesale?
Wholesale is vital, because those partners that will, you know, take that and spread the story, and you know, the more orders the workshops get, the better.
Of course.
It's yes, wholesale is important.
That's really interesting, because I had a conversation with someone who hates wholesale. They were like, you know, you don't make any money from wholesale, etc. Obviously we don't have to talk about the business side, but it's really interesting seeing and hearing different people's perspective within this person owns a clothing brand, so it's obviously might be slightly different. But it's just really interesting hearing.
I mean, the truth is, yes, your margins are smaller at wholesale.
Yeah, of course.
That's fine, but it's about,
it's still getting more work.
A lot of these people, they need orders. Fundamentally, it's like, we need more work. So that's our dominant aim with that. But it's also spreading the beautiful the message, exactly.
And for other jewellery designers, have you got any tips or
how to do better?
How to do better?
How to do better. I think in terms of kind of what we started this on, which is ethical jewellery and how it works. I think to ask questions. I mean, it's unrealistic to have the privilege to visit mines, to visit workshops, and you don't need to work in Afghanistan or England. There's a lot of skills, a lot of workshops. And here's a place that's great. Visit the workshops if you're not making yourself and you're working through others, and ask questions. Where's this gem from? Africa. Where in Africa? Mozambique. Where in Mozambique? Just kind of try and get details.
Tell me about the mine.
And sometimes I have to be honest that information is lost. It's particularly in India, where it's such a big gem industry and things are coming from all over the world. And so often I'm just told it's Russian or
you're like, is it?
Or that it's made up. Sometimes you're like, really? And it's hard because it's gone through so many hands since it left the mine that by the time it's in India being cut or whatever,
it's gone from somewhere. My stepsister has a jewellery business and she focuses on sustainable and ethical, but she does it all herself. And she said she went to Sri Lanka to go to the mines because she was like, I just don't know. Because it was actually she went because she knew it was going to be good and it was a really good mine, but she just said you just don't know.
And it's good to, I guess, meet the people.
Exactly, which is obviously what you do. You go and meet the people, you make sure they're all happy, you try and understand their culture, their communities.
How's it impacting for good and bad? Just get an understanding.
So top tip to new designers, go meet your suppliers.
If possible. Otherwise, just ask the questions. And then I think also it's so important because we're talking about choices, and for consumers to make those choices is really vital. So the more information they have that this will impact a community or an individual or a livelihood or a country, amazing. This may be going into the hands of a sorry.
That's right.
A large company where it's a little more anonymous, it's good to inform. And if you're making it yourself, if you know the source, amazing. That's, you've got your...
small scale.
That's perfect. But I think kind of educating people so they can make those choices about how they spend their money is really important.
I agree.
Just consuming in a conscious way, isn't it? And investing in pieces, I think, that are from the ethical, sustainable places rather than going to Primark and
well, I don't think you can have a sustainable brand if it's not ethical, because it's not sustainable for the people.
You know what, this is a thing that I've noticed a lot recently, which is a lot of brands call themselves sustainable but they forget about the ethics and the humanitarian aspect of it.
Is it land over people or people over land? But I think with jewellery, the truth is gold cannot be replanted. You cannot plant gems and harvest the next lot. This is it. This takes millennium to create. The earth's created them. That's it. When it's all gone, it's gone. And there's no creating more, except for lab grown. That's a different story.
Yeah, that's the whole thing though,
Jewellery, when we use the word sustainable, it's really tricky. We're talking about materials
that come from the ground.
They're not sustainable. When they're gone, they're gone. But when we talk about jobs, being sustainable jobs, when we talk about keeping traditions alive and, creativity, sustainability of design, having a new market, a new life.
But I love that you say that, gold is not necessarily sustainable because it's not a renewable source immediately, it's 1,000 years. And I think that shows strength as a designer to know that, because not many people would admit that. They would just say
I think that's 100%
we're so good at everything.
I mean, it is also the most recycled material in the world. So
of course,
nobody's throwing gold away. I mean,
would you ever use recycled gold?
Oh, we do use recycled.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, without a second thought, yes, of course. But so much gold is, they say that, sometimes you can buy, I don't know, a new wedding ring, and in it you might have a bit of Etruscan gold, or, gold is always, has been and always will be recycled.
It's kind of circular.
It's totally circular. You melt it down, you clean it up, you remake it. And I mean, it's like glass. It's like something that you can constantly, you don't
Walk
like it
and
anymore,
change.
melt it and do it again. And it's kind of amazing for that.
Yeah,
so
thank
much.
you.
Yeah.
We're just like, are we going to call it a day? Because I feel like we could chat forever.
Is there anything else that you'd want to, share with the listeners?
Well, I think it's just, I remember at a certain point when I was kind of working more in human rights, thinking like jewellery was a really shallow thing to do, and it was like a little bit, one could do something more important in life. But at the end of the day, I sort of thought this, as we were saying, kind of the role of beauty in the world is important. And I think, to make something and to work with people where they're proud of what they're producing, it does have a place. And it's kind of, I'm sort of feeling a little more like, no, it's good.
I love
Making
that.
things is, makes me happy, it
brings
makes the
joy.
maker happy, and it makes the wearer happy. So it brings joy, which is...
We need more joy in this world.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode.
If you want to see more from us, you can follow us on socials at Rosie and Izzy Manuel.